In a sunlit Atlanta courtroom, Chief Justice Marcus Holloway, a black man with steel in his gaze, slammed his gavel, locking a crooked white cop behind bars for 20 years. Cheers erupted. Hours later, sirens screeched as racist officers stormed, his porch cuffs biting his wrists. "I'm the Chief Justice," he roared. They smirked. Not anymore, as cameras flashed his downfall. What twisted game flipped his triumph into this nightmare? Before we dive in, let me know where you're watching from. And if justice fires you up, hit like and subscribe because tomorrow's episode will blow your mind. Marcus Holloway slumped against the cold steel bench in a dimly lit cell, the echo of his own gavel still ringing in his ears from that morning's triumph. His tailored suit, once a symbol of authority, now clung to him, wrinkled and damp with sweat from the night's chaos. The air stank of mildew and urine, a far cry from the polished oak of his Atlanta courtroom. He rubbed his wrists, still raw from the cuffs that had bitten into his skin when those officers dragged him from his porch. Any minute now, he told himself, the precinct captain would storm in, red-faced and apologetic, muttering about a mix-up. After all, he was the Chief Justice of Georgia's Supreme Court, not some street hustler they could toss aside. His arrest had to be a mistake, a glitch in the system he'd spent 30 years mastering. He clenched his fists, picturing the headlines tomorrow, "Justice prevails, Holloway freed." The thought kept him steady, a lifeline in the grime. Then the cell door clanged open, and Lieutenant Victor Crane swaggered in, all 6 feet of him radiating menace under the flickering fluorescent light. His buzzed blonde hair gleamed like a halo gone wrong, and his lips curled into a sneer that made Marcus's stomach twist. Crane wasn't some beat cop. He was a name whispered in black neighborhoods, a predator in blue who'd busted skulls and planted evidence for sport. Marcus straightened, meeting the man's icy stare, refusing to flinch even as his pulse hammered. Crane tossed a manila folder onto the bench, its contents spilling out. Grainy photos of Marcus shaking hands with a shadowy figure, a stack of cash-changing hands, timestamps marking a date from 3 months back. "Recognize this?" Crane's voice dripped with mock curiosity, thick with a drawl that sharpened every syllable into a blade. Marcus squinted at the images, his brow furrowing. He'd never seen that man, never touched that money. "What's this garbage?" he snapped, shoving the photos back. Crane chuckled, a low rumble that bounced off the concrete walls. "That's you taking a bribe to throw the Dawson case, Your Honor. Fixed it for that slimeball cop you sentenced today." Funny how justice works, huh? Marcus's jaw tightened, heat rising in his chest. The Dawson case had been airtight, a 2-year probe into a white officer who'd gunned down an unarmed black teen in a gas station lot. Marcus had pored over every shred of evidence, ensuring the bastard got 20 years, no parole. "You're delusional," he spat, standing to face Crane eye to eye. "I don't play dirty, you've got nothing." Crane stepped closer, his breath sour with coffee and spite, and tapped the folder. "Oh, I've got plenty. Bank records, witnesses, a nice little video waiting to hit the news. You're done, Holloway." Before Marcus could fire back, the door swung wide again, and a guard barked for him to move. They marched him down a hall reeking of bleach, past cells where men stared with hollow eyes, and into a room where a dozen reporters waited like vultures. Flashbulbs popped, blinding, him as mics jabbed at his face. "Chief Justice Holloway, did you rig the Dawson case?" one shouted. "How much did you pocket?" another pressed. Marcus froze, the questions slamming into him like fists. He opened his mouth to deny it, to demand proof, but Crane stepped forward, holding up a tablet. The screen flickered to life, showing a choppy video. Marcus, or someone damn close to him, in a dark alley sliding an envelope into his coat while a voice off-screen muttered about fixing Dawson. The footage was shaky, the face half blurred, but the suit, the posture, it was close enough to sell the lie. Gasps rippled through the pack, and Marcus felt the floor tilt beneath him. "That's not me!" he roared, lunging for the tablet. But a guard yanked him back, pinning his arms. Crane smirked, letting the clip loop, the incriminating frames searing into every lens aimed his way. "Evidence don't lie, folks. Your hero's a fraud." The room erupted, voices overlapping. In a frenzy as Marcus's name morphed into a curse, they hauled him back to the cell, his shouts drowned by the clamor, and slammed the door shut. Alone again, he sank to the bench, the folder's photo staring up at him like a death sentence. His mind raced, piecing it together. Crane had been at the Dawson trial, lurking in the gallery, his scowl burning holes in Marcus every time their eyes met. Marcus Holloway paced the cell, the concrete floor scuffing his polished shoes, each step a countdown to freedom he could taste. The forged video from Crane still gnawed at him, a venomous lie looping in his skull, but his lawyer, a wiry bulldog, named Carla Evans, had pulled strings. Bail was set, a cool 100,000, and she'd posted it before the ink dried. He'd be out by noon, back with Aisha, plotting to shred Crane's frame-up. The guard's keys jangled, a sweet sound. After 16 hours in this pit, and Marcus straightened his tie, reclaiming a shred of dignity. "Time to go, Holloway," the guard grunted, swinging the door wide. Marcus stepped into the hall, the precinct's buzz a dull roar, officers glaring as he passed. Did they really buy Crane's garbage, or were they just itching to see a black man in robes full? He pushed the thought down, focusing on the exit ahead, sunlight spilling through glass doors like a promise. Carla waited outside, her sharp grey suit a beacon, and beside her stood Aisha, all 22 years of her trembling with relief. Marcus broke into a jog, the weight of the night lifting as he hit the steps, arms wide. Aisha crashed into him, her braids brushing his cheek, her sob muffled against his chest. "Dad, I knew it wasn't true," she whispered, and he squeezed her tighter, the world righting itself for a split second. Carla clapped his shoulder, her voice crisp. "We've got a press conference in 2 hours. You're clearing your name today." Marcus nodded, exhaling, believing the nightmare might actually end. Could a single day flip from hell to hope this fast? He let Aisha go, turning to thank Carla when a crack split the air, sharp and final. Pain seared his shoulder, a hot lance, tearing through muscle, and he stumbled, blood blooming red on his white shirt. Aisha's scream pierced the chaos as he hit the pavement, gravel biting his palms. "Shoot her!" Carla yelled, diving for cover, but Marcus's eyes locked on the T precinct roof, a glint of metal winking in the sun. Another shot rang out, pinging off the steps, and the crowd scattered, shrieks drowning the sirens now wailing. Marcus rolled behind a parked car, clutching his arm, the wound pulsing with every heartbeat. Aisha crawled to him, her face streaked with tears, and he pulled her close, shielding her as boots thundered down the steps. Officers swarmed, not to help but to pin him, their knees slamming his spine into the asphalt. "He's resisting!" one bellowed, a voice Marcus didn't know, and cuffs snapped back on, tighter than before. Blood soaked his sleeve, dripping onto the ground, but the pain was nothing next to the betrayal clawing his gut. "I'm shot, you idiots," he roared, twisting to see their faces, all white, all smirking. Aisha lunged, clawing at an officer's arm, but he shoved her back, her head cracking against the curb. "Stay down, girl," he snarled, and Marcus's vision blurred with rage. "She's my daughter," he shouted, but they ignored him, hauling him up as cameras rolled, lenses, hungry for the scene. Lieutenant Victor Crane emerged from the precinct, his bulk casting a shadow over the steps, that same sneer twisting his lips. "Tried to run, huh?" he said, loud enough for the mics to catch. "Opened fire on my men. Lucky we stopped him." Marcus's jaw dropped, the lie so bold it stole his breath. "You shot me," he yelled, but Crane waved a hand and an officer stepped forward, holding a pistol Marcus had never seen. "Found this on him," the cop said, tossing it into an evidence bag with a theatrical flourish. The crowd gasped, phones flashing, and Marcus saw the script unfold. Resisting arrest, armed and dangerous, a judge turned thug. Crane leaned in, his whisper a blade in Marcus's ear. "Should have stayed quiet, Holloway. Now you're a dead man walking." They dragged him back inside, Aisha's cries fading as the doors slammed shut, the precinct swallowing him whole again. Blood trailed behind him, a scarlet thread marking his path, and the cell loomed ahead, colder than before. The guard shoved him in, the clang of steel a death knell, and Marcus collapsed against the wall, his shoulder throbbing, his mind racing. Carla's press conference was dust now, his freedom a cruel tease snatched away in seconds. How could they spin a bullet, In his flesh into his crime? He tore a strip from his shirt, tying it around the wound, wincing as the fabric darkened with red. Aisha's fall replayed, her skull hitting concrete, and he prayed she was okay, that Carla had her safe. But Crane's game was clear. This wasn't just about ruining him, it was about breaking him piece by piece. The sniper hadn't missed by accident. It was a warning, a taste of what waited if he kept fighting. Marcus Holloway paced the cell, the concrete floor scuffing his polished shoes, each step a countdown to freedom he could taste. The forged video from Crane still gnawed at him, a venomous lie looping in his skull. But his lawyer, a wiry bulldog, named Carla Evans, had pulled strings. Bail was set, a cool 100,000, and she'd posted it before the ink dried. He'd be out by noon, back with Aisha, plotting to shred Crane's frame-up. The guard's keys jangled, a sweet sound. After 16 hours in this pit, and Marcus straightened his tie, reclaiming a shred of dignity. "Time to go, Holloway," the guard grunted, swinging the door wide. Marcus stepped into the hall, the precinct's buzz a dull roar, officers glaring as he passed. Did they really buy Crane's garbage, or were they just itching to see a black man in robes fall? He pushed the thought down, focusing on the exit ahead, sunlight spilling through glass doors like a promise. Carla waited outside, her sharp grey suit a beacon, and beside her stood Aisha, all 22 years of her trembling with relief. Marcus broke into a jog, the weight of the night lifting as he hit the steps, arms wide. Aisha crashed into him, her braids brushing his cheek, her sob muffled against his chest. "Dad, I knew it wasn't true," she whispered, and he squeezed her tighter, the world righting itself for a split second. Carla clapped his shoulder, her voice crisp. "We've got a press conference in 2 hours. You're clearing your name today." Marcus nodded, exhaling, believing the nightmare might actually end. Could a single day flip from hell to hope this fast? He let Aisha go, turning to thank Carla, when a crack split the air, sharp and final. Pain seared his shoulder, a hot lance, tearing through muscle, and he stumbled, blood blooming red on his white shirt. Aisha's scream pierced the chaos as he hit the pavement, gravel biting his palms. "Shoot her!" Carla yelled, diving for cover, but Marcus's eyes locked on the precinct roof, a glint of metal winking in the sun. Another shot rang out, pinging off the steps, and the crowd scattered, shrieks drowning the sirens now wailing. Marcus rolled behind a parked car, clutching his arm, the wound pulsing with every heartbeat. Aisha crawled to him, her face streaked with tears, and he pulled her close, shielding her as boots thundered down the steps. Officers swarmed, not to help, but to pin him, their knees slamming his spine into the asphalt. "He's resisting," one bellowed, a voice Marcus didn't know, and cuffs snapped back on tighter than before. Blood soaked his sleeve, dripping onto the ground, but the pain was nothing next to the betrayal clawing his gut. "I'm shot, you idiots," he roared, twisting to see their faces, all white, all smirking. Aisha lunged, clawing at an officer's arm, but he shoved her back, her head cracking against the curb. "Stay down, girl," he snarled, and Marcus's vision blurred with rage. "She's my daughter," he shouted, but they ignored him, hauling him up as cameras rolled, lenses. Hungry for the scene, Lieutenant Victor Crane emerged from the precinct, his bulk casting a shadow over the steps, that same sneer twisting his lips. "Tried to run, huh?" he said, loud enough for the mics to catch. "Opened fire on my men. Lucky we stopped him." Marcus's jaw dropped, the lie so bold it stole his breath. "You shot me," he yelled, but Crane waved a hand, and an officer stepped forward, holding a pistol Marcus had never seen. "Found this on him," the cop said, tossing it into an evidence bag with a theatrical flourish. The crowd gasped, phones flashing, and Marcus saw the script unfold. Resisting arrest, armed and dangerous, a judge turned thug. Crane leaned in, his whisper a blade in Marcus's ear. "Should have stayed quiet, Holloway, now you're a dead man walking." They dragged him back inside, Aisha's cries fading as the doors slammed shut, the precinct swallowing him whole again. Blood trailed behind him, a scarlet thread marking his path, and the cell loomed ahead, colder than before. The guard shoved him in, the clang of steel a death knell, and Marcus collapsed against the wall, his shoulder throbbing, his mind racing. Carla's press conference was dust now, his freedom a cruel tease snatched away in seconds. How could they spin a bullet in his flesh into his crime? He tore a strip from his shirt, tying it around the wound, wincing as the fabric darkened with red. Aisha's fall replayed, her skull hitting concrete, and he prayed she was okay, that Carla had her safe. But Crane's game was clear. This wasn't just about ruining him, it was about breaking him piece by piece. The sniper hadn't missed by accident. It was a warning, a taste of what waited if he kept fighting. Marcus's breath hitched, the cell's damp air choking him, but he forced his eyes open, staring at the bars. He'd been naive, thinking bail was the end, that justice would blink and see him. Crane had the precinct, the streets, maybe the whole damn city in his pocket, and Marcus was a fly in his web. The video had been the first blow, this bullet the second, and each hit landed, harder, dirtier than the last. He thought of the rookie cop Crane had framed once, a kid who'd ended up swinging from a bridge after resisting too loud. Was that Marcus's fate now, a noose dressed up as law? The precinct hummed beyond the walls, voices buzzing with glee, and he caught Crane's name, a hero's chant in their twisted hymn. Marcus's shoulder burned, but his resolve hardened, an ember glowing in the dark. He'd survived worse, fought bigger monsters in courtrooms and backrooms, and he wouldn't let Crane win. Not yet. But as the blood pooled beneath him, soaking, the floor doubt whispered louder. The sniper, the planted gun, Aisha's scream, it was a symphony of hate, and Crane was the conductor, grinning as the notes rose. Marcus had thought his gavel could shield him, that his title meant power. Now, bleeding in this cage, he saw the truth. To them, he was just another black man to bury, and they'd dig the hole deep. Footsteps echoed again, and a new face appeared. A skinny cop with a nervous twitch, sliding a tray through the slot. "Eat up," he muttered, avoiding Marcus's gaze, and scurried off. The tray held a stale sandwich, but Marcus ignored it, his stomach a knot of fury and fear. Crane's lie was live now, plastered across screens. Fugitive judge shoots at cops, and the world would swallow it whole. He'd been a symbol yesterday, a black man who'd cracked the system's ceiling, and today he was their punching bag, a cautionary tale for anyone who dared rise. How far would Crane push this? Would Aisha be next, caught in the crossfire of his vendetta? Marcus clenched his fists, the pain sharpening his focus, and vowed to claw back, to expose this snake before it swallowed him. But the cell walls loomed, the blood kept dripping, and the questions piled up, each one a weight he couldn't shake. What kind of man turned a bullet into a badge of honor? Drop a comment with the number 1 if you think Crane's too far gone to stop. Hit like if Marcus deserves a shot at fighting back, and subscribe because this story's only getting wilder. So, what's Crane cooking up next to keep Marcus down, and how's a bleeding man supposed to outrun a lie that big? Marcus Holloway slumped against the cell wall, his shoulder a throbbing mess of blood and torn fabric, the makeshift bandage soaked through. The precinct's hum pulsed beyond the bars, a hive of venom waiting to sting again. His mind churned, replaying Aisha's scream, the sniper's glint, Crane's sneer as they'd hauled him back inside. Bail had been a trap, a cruel lure to paint him a fugitive, and now the world saw him as a cop-shooting thug, not a judge. He pressed his palm to the wound, wincing, but the pain sharpened his focus. He wasn't dying here, not like this. The guard who'd brought the sandwich, a twitchy kid with darting eyes, had lingered too long, his whisper barely audible. "Midnight transfer. Be ready." Marcus hadn't trusted it then, but as the clock ticked past 11, boots echoed down. The hall and the same kid appeared, keys rattling. "Move," he hissed, unlocking the cell, his gaze flicking to the shadows. Marcus stood, legs shaky but firm, and followed, every nerve screaming ambush. The kid led him through a maze of corridors, past snoring drunks and muttering junkies, to a back exit where a van idled, exhaust curling in the humid Atlanta night. "Get in," the guard said, shoving him toward the open door. Marcus hesitated, peering at the driver, a grizzled black man with a scar slicing his brow. "Name's Tyrell," the driver grunted. "Used to clerk for you. Crane's boys killed. My brother. We're square now." Marcus nodded, climbing in, the van lurching forward before he'd even sat. Tyrell wove through back streets, headlights off, the city a blur of sodium glow and looming towers. "They're moving you to Fulton County," he said, voice low. "Crane's got a kill squad waiting. You're dead if you stay." Marcus gripped the seat, blood seeping through his fingers, and pieced it together. Tyrell's brother had been a case years back, a kid gunned down by cops, ruled justified until Marcus overturned it. Loyalty ran deep, and now it was his lifeline. The van screeched to a stop outside a brick building, its sign faded but legible. Reggie's Cuts, a barbershop, tucked in a black neighborhood Crane wouldn't dare patrol. Tyrell hustled him inside, the bell jangling as the door shut. Reggie, a stout man with grey dreads and a limp, met them with a nod, his shop a cocoon of buzzing clippers and gospel radio. "Lay low here," he said, pointing to a back room stacked with old chairs and a cot. Marcus sank onto the mattress, the adrenaline fading, leaving him hollow. Reggie handed him a burner phone, its screen cracked but alive. "Call who you need, we've got your back." Marcus dialed Carla first, her voice cutting through static after 2 rings. "Marcus, thank God Aisha's with me, banged up but safe. Where are you?" He exhaled, relief flooding him, and gave her the address, whispering plans to dig up. Dirt on Crane. Next, he called an old law school buddy, Jamal, now a tech whiz who could hack anything. "Need you to pull precinct logs," Marcus said. "Prove that Sniper was one of theirs." Jamal agreed, his keyboard already clacking. Marcus hung up, hope flickering, and grabbed a towel from Reggie to rewrap his shoulder, the blood slowing. To a trickle. He'd clear his name, expose Crane, end this madness. The shop's hum soothed him, scissors snipping, voices laughing about basketball scores. Could he really turn this around from a cot in a barbershop? He leaned back, plotting his next move, when glass shattered out front, a deafening crash that jolted him upright. Shouts erupted, boots stomping, and Reggie's voice boomed, "Get out now!" Marcus bolted to the door, peering through a curtain as SWAT flooded the shop, black vests gleaming, rifles raised. Customers screamed, diving behind chairs, and Reggie swung a broom like a bat, buying time. "Sewer hatch, under the sink!" Tyrell yelled, shoving Marcus toward the back. He stumbled into the tiny bathroom, heart pounding, and yanked open the cabinet, revealing a rusted grate. The stench hit him first, a wall of rot and damp, but he pried it loose, metal scraping. His palms. Gunfire popped outside, glass crunching under boots, and he dropped into the hole, landing knee-deep in sludge. The tunnel stretched dark and endless, water sloshing as he ran, his shoulders screaming with every step. Above, the shop turned to chaos, SWAT barking orders, Reggie's defiance cut short by a thud. Marcus pushed forward, the burner phone his only light, its glow bouncing off slimy walls. How had they found him so fast? Tyrell's van, the guard's tip, someone had snitched, and Crane's reach was a noose tightening around his neck. The raid wasn't random, it was surgical, a strike to crush his flicker of freedom. He pictured Reggie's face, Tyrell's scar, men risking everything for him, and now they'd pay. The tunnel forked, and he veered left, instinct driving him, the sounds of pursuit fading but not gone. His breath rasped, lungs burning, but he kept moving, the phone's battery blinking red. He'd escaped, barely, but Crane had flipped the board again, turning a safe haven into a war zone. The barbershop would be headlines by dawn, fugitive judges' hideout raided, and those men, his saviors, would be cuffed or worse. Marcus's gut twisted, guilt clawing at him, but he shoved it down. He'd make it right, for them, for Aisha, for himself. The tunnel spat him out near a storm drain, the city sprawling under a moonless sky, and he crawled onto wet grass, chest heaving. Sirens wailed in the distance, closing in, and he staggered to his feet, the phone's last bar of power fading. He dialed Jamal again, voice hoarse. "They hit us. Need a new spot fast." Jamal cursed, promising a pickup, but Marcus knew the clock was ticking. Crane wasn't just hunting him. He was erasing him piece by piece. The shop's destruction wasn't enough. It was a message, a torch lit to burn every bridge Marcus had left. He stumbled into an alley, the burner dying in his hand, and leaned against a dumpster, blood crusting his arm. Tyrell's words echoed, "Dead if you stay." But running wasn't winning, it was surviving, and Crane thrived on that gap. The precinct guard, the sniper, now this, each blow sharper, dirtier than the last. Marcus had thought breaking out was the hard part, that a few calls could unravel Crane's web. Now ankle-deep in sewer muck, he saw the truth. Crane didn't just want him caged, he wanted him broken, a public corpse for every bigot to cheer. The alley stretched quiet, a rare pause, and Marcus caught his breath, mind racing. Reggie's. Broom, Tyrell's wheel. They'd bought him this shot, and he wouldn't waste it. He'd hit back, expose the mole, turn Crane's game inside out. But as headlights flashed at the alley's end, tires squealing, he tensed, unsure if it was Jamal or death rolling in. The SWAT team had been too quick, too precise, and Crane's shadow loomed larger than ever. Marcus had escaped the cell, the van, the raid, but freedom was a ghost, slipping through his fingers with every step. The city pulsed around him, a beast waking to devour him, and he wondered how deep Crane's claws sank, how many more would fall before this ended. Marcus Holloway hunched over a chipped table in a motel room off Interstate 20, the kind of place where roaches outnumbered guests and the neon sign buzzed like a dying fly. His shoulder ached, a dull fire under the fresh bandage Reggie's wife had slapped on before the SWAT team turned the barbershop into rubble. The sewer stink clung to his torn suit, a sour reminder of how close he'd come to losing everything in that tunnel. Jamal's pickup had been a godsend, a beat-up sedan screeching into the alley just as sirens closed in, and now they were here, 30 miles from Atlanta, the city's glow a faint smear on the horizon. The room was a cave of peeling paint and cigarette burns, but it had a rickety desk, a laptop Jamal had brought, and a Wi-Fi signal that flickered like a pulse. Marcus's hands trembled as he sipped water from a plastic cup, his eyes locked on the screen where Jamal's fingers danced, pulling files from a hacked precinct server. "Got it," Jamal muttered, his dread swaying as he leaned back, revealing footage of Crane barking orders to a sniper on the precinct roof, time-stamped minutes before Marcus took that bullet. Marcus's breath caught, a jagged hope slicing through the exhaustion. This was gold, undeniable proof Crane had tried to kill him, not arrest him. "Upload it," he said, voice rough but steady. "Every platform. Let the world see." Jamal nodded, his tech magic spinning the clip into a torrent of shares, hashtags lighting up. "Justice for Holloway. Just Crane lies." Marcus watched the view. Count climb, hundreds turning to thousands, then tens of thousands in an hour. Protests sparked outside the precinct, chants echoing through live streams, fists raised against a sea of blue lights. He leaned against the wall, the plaster cool on his back, and let himself believe it. Could this be the break he'd bled for? The motel's thin curtains fluttered as a breeze slipped through a cracked window, carrying the hum of 18-wheelers. On the highway, Jamal cracked a rare smile, slapping the table. "They're eating it up, man. Crane's toast." Marcus exhaled, picturing Aisha safe with Carla, maybe watching this unfold, her faith in him restored. He'd been a ghost since the arrest, a hunted shadow, but now he was a voice again, loud and unshakable. The laptop pinged, news alerts popping. Chief Justice exposes police plot. Holloway fights back. His chest swelled, not with pride, but with a flicker of power, the kind he'd wielded from the bench before Crane's web snared him. He'd thought the gavel was his shield, but this raw, unfiltered truth was a blade cutting through the lies. The protests grew, tires screeching as cars gridlocked downtown, horns blaring in rhythm with the chants. Marcus paced, adrenaline, masking the pain, and dared to imagine Crane in cuffs, his sneer wiped clean. Was justice finally bending his way? The room's stale air thickened with possibility, and he grabbed the burner phone, texting Carla. "It's working." "Stay low," she replied fast. "Aisha's cheering, we're good." He clutched the phone, a lifeline to his daughter, and felt the tide turning. Then the laptop blared, a new video overriding the feed, its thumbnail a distorted shot of Marcus's face, eyes wild, mouth twisted in a snarl. Jamal cursed, clicking frantically, but it was everywhere, flooding YouTube, every corner of the web. Marcus froze as the clip played, his voice, or something damn close, growling, "I killed that." Cop, and I'd do it again. The screen cut to a grainy scene. Him swinging a bat at a uniformed figure, blood spraying, a scream cut short. The motel walls tilted, the air sucked out, and Marcus's knees buckled. "That's not me," he whispered. But the damage roared. To life, comments exploding. "Monster, lock him up, death penalty." Jamal pounded the desk. "Deep fake, man, it's a deep fake." But the world didn't care. Protests flipped, cheers turning to jeers, bottles shattering against precinct walls now aimed at Marcus's name. News anchors pivoted, their tones. Icy, Holloway's confession stuns nation. Marcus's stomach churned, the victory souring into a noose. Crane's hand was all over this. A counterpunch so vicious it dwarfed the sniper's bullet. How could a lie this big land so fast? He stumbled to the window, peering through the slit, half expecting drones or rifles, but the highway rolled on, oblivious. Jamal traced the upload, his voice tight. Came from a shell account routed through a dozen proxies. Crane's got pros on this. Marcus's mind raced. The sniper footage now a footnote buried under this fabricated slaughter. The bat, the blood, it was a nightmare stitched from pixels, but it stuck, a stain no truth could bleach. He'd been a fool, thinking a viral win could topple Crane, a man who turned tech into a guillotine. The protests morphed, live feeds showing crowds burning his photo, chanting for his head. A lynch mob birthed from code. Marcus's shoulder throbbed, a cruel echo of the bullet. But this hurt deeper, a blade in his soul. He'd fought to be seen, to be heard, and now they saw a killer, not a judge. Was this Crane's endgame, to make him a ghost in his own story? The motel room shrank, the laptop's glow a taunting eye, and Marcus sank to the cot, hands shaking. Jamal kept typing, hunting a way to fight back, but the tide was a tsunami and they were drowning. Crane had flipped the board, turned Marcus's weapon against him, and the world cheered the lie. He thought of Aisha, her cheer fading as this hit her screen, her trust cracking under the weight. The burner buzzed, Carla's text, "They're buying it, we're locked down." Marcus's chest tightened, the flicker of hope snuffed out, replaced by a cold, gnawing dread. Crane wasn't just winning, he was rewriting Marcus's life, frame by frame. The highway rumbled outside, a distant pulse, and Marcus stared at the ceiling, cracks spidering like his future. He'd escaped the sewer, the raid, but this was a cage he couldn't outrun, a digital death sentence tightening with every view. The sniper had grazed him. This tore him apart. He'd thought the truth was enough, that justice could breathe in a world this twisted. Now, with the crowd's hate ringing in his ears, he saw the abyss Crane had dug, and it was bottomless. Drop a comment with one if you think Marcus can still claw out of this mess. Smash that like button if Crane's gone too far to forgive, and subscribe because this roller coaster's nowhere near done. So, with the world turning on him, what's Marcus's next move when even the air feels like a lie? Marcus Holloway slumped in the motel chair, the laptop's glow a mocking flicker as the deepfake looped in his skull, his own voice confessing to a murder he'd never dreamed. The room stank of mildew and defeat, the highway's drone a dull hum beyond the thin walls. Jamal's fingers still hammered the keyboard, chasing a way to unmask Crane's lie, but the world had already swallowed it whole, protests turning to pitchforks overnight. Marcus's shoulder pulsed under the bandage, a steady ache, but it was nothing compared to the dread gnawing his chest. Aisha's last text from Carla burned in his mind. They're buying it. He'd lost the public, his name, his power, and now his daughter's faith hung by a thread. The burner phone buzzed, jolting him upright, and Carla's voice crackled through, sharp with urgency. "Marcus, we're at a safe house, Old Mill off Peachtree Road. Jamal sent coordinates. Get here now." He nodded, though she couldn't see, and rasped, "On my way." Jamal slammed the laptop shut, grabbing the keys. "Let's roll." Crane's got eyes everywhere. The sedan roared to life, tires spitting gravel as they peeled out, the motel shrinking in the rear view. Marcus clutched the phone, picturing Aisha's face, her braids, her fierce eyes, and clung to the hope of holding her again. The city loomed closer, sodium lights smearing the windshield, and Jamal wove through back roads, dodging checkpoints, where blue lights flashed like traps. Peachtree Road stretched dark and quiet, The mill a hulking shadow of brick and rust, its windows boarded tight. Jamal killed the engine, and Marcus stepped out, the night air cool on his sweat-soaked skin. Carla emerged from the doorway, her suit rumpled but her spine straight, and behind her stood Aisha, bruised but alive, her lip trembling as she ran to him. He caught her, arms locking around her slender frame, and buried his face in her hair, the scent of her lavender shampoo a lifeline. "Dad," she choked. "I knew it was fake, I knew." He pulled back, cupping her face, her cheek swollen from the curb fall, and forced a smile. "We're getting out of this, baby girl. All of us." Carla nodded, ushering them inside, the mill's floor creaking underfoot, dust swirling in the bay. Dim glow of a lantern. "Plan's simple," she said, spreading a map on a crate. "We've got a car stashed 2 miles west, clean plates. Head to Savannah, lie low with my cousin till we crack Crane's network." Marcus traced the route, his mind ticking, the deepfake sting fading in the warmth of Aisha's grip. Could they really slip George's net? He packed a duffel with water and bandages, Aisha stuffing her law books beside them, her defiance a mirror of his own. They moved fast, stacking supplies, the mill's silence a fragile shield. Then the air split, a roar of engines and shattering wood as the front wall caved in, splinters flying like shrapnel. Marcus dove, pulling Aisha behind a pillar, his heart slamming as figures in tactical gear stormed through the dust, masks glinting, rifles cocked. Not cops, not SWAT, but a militia, their vests patched with Confederate flags, eyes wild with hate. "Holloway," one barked, voice thick with venom. "Time's up." Bullets chewed the crates, and Carla screamed, "Back exit!" Marcus grabbed Aisha, sprinting for a rusted door, but the militia cut them off, a wall of muscle and steel. He shoved Aisha behind him, fists clenched, ready to fight, when a boot caught his gut, doubling him over. Gasping, he saw them yank Aisha away, her nails clawing air, her cry a blade in his ribs. "Let her go," he roared, lunging, but a rifle butt cracked his skull, stars bursting as he hit the floor. The leader, a wiry man with a buzz cut and a scar splitting his lip, knelt over him, tossing a note onto his chest. "Surrender, or she dies," he read aloud, grinning as Aisha's screams faded, the militia dragging her to a van outside. Marcus clutched the paper, blood trickling from his temple, and staggered up as the engines revved, tires screeching into the night. Carla crawled from the wreckage, her arm bent wrong, and Jamal groaned, pinned under a beam. "Crane!" Marcus spat, the name poison on his tongue. This wasn't random. It was a gut punch, a chess move from the bastard who'd turned his voice into a killer's. He stumbled to the map, the escape plan shredded, and tore through the duffel, finding a flashlight. "They're alive," Carla rasped, wincing as she stood. "We'll find her." Marcus nodded, fury drowning the pain, but the note's weight sank in. Surrender meant death not just for him but for Aisha, a trap dressed as mercy. He'd thought the deepfake was Crane's ace, but this, stealing his daughter, was a dagger to the soul. How could a man twist hate this deep? The mill creaked, a tomb now, and Marcus kicked the crate, wood splintering under his heel. He'd planned to flee, to regroup, but Crane had ripped that away, leaving him bleeding and broken. Again. The militia wasn't freelance. Their gear, their timing, it screamed coordination, Crane's payroll stretching beyond the precinct. Marcus's mind raced. The safe house's fall a louder siren than the SWAT raid, a message carved in his daughter's screams. He'd escaped the sewer, the bullet, but this was personal, a wound no bandage could staunch. "He wants me to give up," Marcus said, voice low, handing Carla the flashlight. "But I'm taking her back." She nodded, grim, and Jamal shoved the beam off, standing with a grunt. "Then we hit him where it hurts," he said, eyes hard. Marcus balled the note, tossing it into the dark, and turned to the door, the night swallowing his shadow. Crane's voice crackled through a TV in the corner left by the militia, a live feed from the precinct. "Holloway surrendered," he lied, smirking at the cameras. "But he's still a threat. Stay vigilant." The broadcast cut to Marcus's mugshot, then Aisha's face, labeled missing, a taunt in pixels. Marcus's fists tightened. nails digging into his palms, the lie a fresh cut. Crane wasn't just framing him, he was erasing him step by step, and Aisha was the bait to seal it. The mill's air thickened, rage and fear choking him, but he forced his legs to move, following Jamal to the car stash. The deepfake had turned the world against him, but this was Crane flexing, showing he could snatch what Marcus loved most and laugh while doing it. The van's taillights were long gone, Aisha's fate a void he couldn't see, and every second stretched the gap wider. He'd thought the motel was rock bottom, the viral winner lifeline, but Crane had claws everywhere, sinking deeper with each blow. The car loomed ahead, a rusted hatchback, and Marcus slid in, the engine coughing to life. He'd surrendered once, walked into Crane's cuffs thinking it'd save her, but the broadcast proved it was a sham, a play to bury him alive. The road stretched west, Savannah a ghost now, and Marcus vowed to turn east, back to Atlanta, to rip Crane's empire apart. The sniper, the raid, the deepfake, they were loud, but this silence, Aisha's absence, was a scream he couldn't mute. Crane wanted him broken, a shell begging for mercy, but Marcus would fight, even if it killed him. Marcus Holloway sat shackled in the courtroom, the same Atlanta chamber where he'd once ruled, now a cage of oak and scorn. His suit hung loose, stained with blood and sweat, a far cry from the robes he'd worn 7 days ago. The gallery buzzed, packed with reporters and gawkers, their whispers a swarm of wasps stinging his ears. Aisha's absence hollowed him out, her screams from the mill echoing louder than the gavel's crack, as the judge, a pinched white man named Hargrove, peered down with cold eyes. Marcus's wrists chafed under the cuffs, his shoulder a dull roar, but he sat tall, refusing to break. The deepfake had turned the world against him. Crane's militia had stolen his daughter, and surrender had been a lie broadcast to bury him. Could this trial be anything but a guillotine? The prosecutor, a slick hawk named Daniels, strutted, forward laying out Crane's tale. Marcus, a corrupt judge turned fugitive, shot at cops, torched a barbershop, confessed to murder online. Evidence piled up, photos of the planted gun, the sewer grate, the motel laptop, each a nail in a coffin, built from lies. Marcus's lawyer, Carla, her arm in a sling from the mill, fought back, her voice a whip cracking through the noise. "This is a sham," she snapped, slamming the hacked sniper footage onto the table, Crane's orders to kill frozen on screen. Daniels scoffed, calling it doctored, but the gallery shifted, murmurs rippling. Marcus watched, a flicker of hope. Battling the dread, his mind on Aisha, chained somewhere by Crane's goons. Was she still breathing, still fighting like he'd taught her? The trial dragged, hours of legal sparring. Daniels painting Marcus as a menace, Carla clawing at the frame-up. Then a surprise witness shuffled in, a rookie cop named Ellis, all 20-something nerves and freckles, his uniform crisp, but his hands shaking. "I saw it," he stammered, eyes darting to Crane in the back row, that sneer etched deep. "Lieutenant Crane planted the gun, faked the resisting, told me to keep quiet or I'd end up like Holloway's kid." The room exploded, gasps and shouts, Hargrove banging for order as Marcus's heart lurched. Aisha, a bargaining chip, waved in his face, and this kid had cracked Crane's wall. Carla pounced, grilling Ellis, pulling dates, times, a confession that matched the sniper clip. Daniels floundered, his polish peeling, and Marcus felt the tide nudge, a whisper of justice in the storm. Could one voice really topple Crane's? Tower. Hargrove recessed, then returned, his ruling sharp. Charges dismissed, evidence tainted, Holloway's free. The cuffs fell, clattering to the floor, and Marcus stood, legs trembling, the gallery a blur of cheers and jeers. Carla gripped his arm, whispering, "We've got a shot now," and he nodded, vowing to find Aisha, to gut Crane's empire. He stepped into the hall, air thick with flashbulbs, reporters shouting, "Chief Justice cleared." Freedom tasted, bitter, incomplete without his daughter. But it was a weapon he'd wield. Night fell as he slipped into Carla's car, the city's pulse a distant throb, and they headed to a friend's loft, a temporary shield. Marcus showered, the hot water stinging his wounds, and pulled on a borrowed shirt, plotting his next strike. Crane wouldn't stop. The dismissal was a slap he'd return tenfold. Could Marcus hit back before the next blow landed? He stepped onto the balcony. the skyline glittering, and breathed deep, the weight of the week lifting just enough to think. Then smoke curled into his nose, acrid and sharp, and screams pierced the quiet below. He bolted to the railing, eyes widening as flames licked the horizon. His house 5 miles away, a torch in the dark. Carla rushed out, phone buzzing with alerts. Arson at Holloway's residence, suspect at large. Marcus's knees buckled, the victory crumbling, and he ran downstairs, Carla trailing, the car screeching toward the blaze. The street was chaos, neighbors coughing in pajamas, fire trucks wailing, and his home, a 2-story sanctuary of memories, roared with orange fury. He shoved through the crowd, heat searing his face, and saw it, glinting in the wreckage. Aisha's necklace, a silver star he'd given her at 16, half melted in the ash. His throat closed, a sob choking him, and he dropped to the pavement, clutching the metal, its edges cutting his palm. "No," he rasped, the flames mocking him, Crane's hand a ghost in the smoke. Firefighters battled the inferno, water hissing, but it was gone. Every photo, every book, every trace of his life with Aisha, ashes now. Carla knelt beside him, her voice tight. "He's sending a message. She's not here, Marcus, she's not." He nodded, clinging to that, but the necklace was a taunt, a dagger Crane had plunged from afar. The crowd thinned, whispers of "he did it" floating, and a cop approached, not Ellis, but a burly vet, with Crane's smirk. "Found this too," he said, tossing a gas can stamped with Marcus's initials, a prop so blatant it screamed "setup." Reporters swarmed, lenses zooming, and Marcus staggered up, the dismissal a hollow echo as Crane's revenge roared louder. The house wasn't just a loss, it was a stage, a new act in the frame-up, Aisha's necklace, the curtain call. He'd walked free hours ago, thinking the gavel had saved him, but Crane had torched that hope, turning liberty into a trap. The fire's heat lingered on his skin, a brand of hate, and Marcus's vow hardened, a steel core in the wreckage. Crane wanted him shattered, a shell crawling back to beg, but this was fuel, a blaze he'd turn on its maker. Carla pulled him to the car, the necklace cold in his fist, and he stared at the dying flames, mind racing. The rookie had cracked the case, but Crane had cracked his world, each blow sharper, crueler than the last. The dismissal was a win he couldn't hold, a breath before the chokehold tightened. Drop a comment with one if you think Marcus can turn this fire into his fight, hit like if Crane's crossed a line no man should, and subscribe because this story's burning hotter every second. So, with his house in ashes and Aisha still gone, how's Marcus going to strike back when Crane's playing with matches and lives? Marcus Holloway stood in the loft's dim kitchen, the glow of a single bulb casting jagged shadows across his face. Aisha's melted necklace a cold weight in his pocket. The smell of smoke still clung to him, a ghost of his torched home. And his shoulder throbbed under the bandage, a dull drumbeat of pain. Carla paced nearby, her sling a stark reminder of the mill's collapse, while Jamal hunched over his laptop, fingers flying to trace Crane's next move. The courtroom win had been a mirage, snuffed out by flames and a gas can stamped with Marcus's initials, Crane's latest gut punch. Aisha was still out there, chained by that militia, and the necklace was a taunt Marcus couldn't shake. He slammed a fist on the counter, the thud echoing, and Carla stopped, her eyes sharp. "We can't run anymore," he said, voice gravelly, with resolve. "Crane's burning everything I've got, time to burn him back." Jamal nodded, pulling up a list of contacts, black activists who'd rallied for Marcus online after the sniper clip. "Got a crew ready," he said. "They're pissed, man. Ready to roll." Marcus exhaled, the plan forming, a spark in the dark. He'd hit Crane where it hurt, in public, with truth as his weapon. The loft buzzed as they worked, calls bouncing between burner phones, a network of voices eager to fight. By dawn, they'd rallied 12, a tight knot of fury. A teacher named Keisha, whose brother Crane had framed, a mechanic Darnell, who'd lost a shop to police raids, others each scarred by the same blue venom. They met in a warehouse off MLK Drive, its walls tagged with faded murals, the air thick with dust and defiance. Marcus stood on a crate, the necklace glinting as he held it up. "This is what Crane took," he said, voice steady. "My daughter, my home, my name. We're taking it back." Keisha crossed her arms, nodding, while Darnell cracked his knuckles, eyes hard. They mapped it out. A press conference Crane was set to hold at noon, gloating about restoring order. Marcus's crew would crash it. Air-hacked bodycam footage Jamal had snagged. Crane beating a black teen bloody in a back alley, his laugh chilling the audio. The plan was tight, reckless, but alive. And Marcus felt the old fire, the judge who'd faced down corruption from the bench. They rolled out at 11, 3 cars weaving through Atlanta's midday snarl, the precinct looming ahead, a grey fortress swarmed by news vans. Marcus rode with Keisha, her grip tight on the wheel, and clutched a megaphone, the footage loaded on a tablet. The crowd thickened as they parked, reporters chattering, Crane's voice booming from a podium out front, all polished lies about Holloway's reign of terror. Marcus stepped into the throng, his crew fanning out, and raised the megaphone, its crackle slicing through Crane's spiel. "You want the truth?" he roared, voice raw but unyielding. "Here's your hero." Jamal hit play, the tablet's screen mirrored on a hacked precinct jumbotron. Crane's fist slamming the teen's jaw, blood splattering asphalt, his snarl clear. "Stay down, boy." The crowd gasped, phones flashing, and Crane froze, his eye. Sneer slipping as chaos erupted. Protesters surged, fists pumping, voices chanting, "Crane must go." Keisha tossed flyers with the clip's link, Darnell shoving through to block cops rushing the stage. Marcus held the megaphone high, the footage looping, Crane's brutality a spotlight he couldn't dodge. Reporters swarmed, mics jabbing. "Chief, justice, is this revenge?" But Marcus pushed past, eyes on Crane, who'd retreated behind a wall of blue. The precinct doors slammed, but the damage was done. The crowd a roaring tide, bottles shattering against riot shields. Marcus's chest heaved, triumph pulsing, a crack in Crane's armor at last. Could this finally snap the chain? Sirens wailed, tear gas pluming, but the activists held, a human shield around Marcus as they fell back to the cars. News choppers thumped overhead, the footage spreading like wildfire, and by dusk the governor's office caved, suspending Crane pending review. Marcus watched the announcement from the warehouse, the crew slumped on crates, bruised but grinning. "We did." "It," Keisha said, clapping his back, and he nodded, the necklace a quiet weight. He'd hit Crane hard, turned the city's eyes, and suspension was a start. A stumble for the bastard who'd torched his life. Night settled, the warehouse a bunker of flickering lights, and Marcus let himself breathe, the gavel's echo replaced by this raw, street-born justice. Then a shot rang out, a single pop that shattered the quiet, and Darnell crumpled, blood pooling under his chest, a sniper's bullet through the window. Marcus dove, dragging Keisha down as glass sprayed, screams ripping the air. "He's hit!" Jamal yelled, crawling to Darnell, but the mechanic's eyes glazed, breath gone. The crew scattered, panic seizing them, and Marcus's gut twisted, the megaphone clattering from his hand. Cops swarmed outside, not Cranes, but city brass, their radios crackling. "Holloway incited this!" The sniper wasn't a fluke, it was a plant, Crane's ghost striking from suspension, flipping triumph into a massacre. Marcus knelt by Darnell, blood slick on his hands, and saw the trap snap shut. The footage had wounded Crane, but this pinned the kill on Marcus. A rebellion turned riot in the public's eye. Keisha sobbed, "They'll blame us," and she was right. News vans already rolling tape, activists shot in Holloway clash. The warehouse trembled, boots closing in, and Marcus staggered up, the necklace slipping to the floor, its star, dulled by Darnell's red. Crane hadn't just dodged the blow, he'd swung back, a sniper's precision outgunning Marcus's roar. The suspension was a feint, a pause to reload, and this was the real hit, a body to bury Marcus's cause. He'd rallied a crew, stormed the stage, and thought the crowd's fury was his shield. But Crane had turned it, a chess master sacrificing a pawn to take the king. The cops breached the door, shouting, "Hands up!" And Marcus raised his, the weight of Darnell's death a chain heavier than cuffs. They dragged him out, the crew cuffed beside him, and the night swallowed their fight, choppers circling like vultures. Crane's face flashed on a news screen across the street, suspended but smug. A man who'd lost the badge but kept the blade. Marcus's victory had been loud, a megaphone's echo. But this silence, this blood, was Crane's answer, a quiet that screamed louder than the crowd. The precinct loomed again, a familiar moor, and Marcus stumbled into it, the necklace left behind, a star drowned in the dark. He'd thought suspension would slow Crane, that truth could outrun lies. But the sniper's shot proved him wrong. A bullet through his hope. Darnell's body, the crew's cries, they were costs Crane paid gladly, a butcher tallying lives to keep Marcus down. The rebellion had cracked the surface, but Crane's roots ran deep, twisting justice into a noose. Marcus couldn't slip. Marcus Holloway sat in the warehouse's wreckage, Darnell's blood drying on his hands, the air thick with gunpowder and grief. The sniper's shot still rang in his ears, a single crack that turned rebellion into ruin, Crane's ghost striking. From the shadows of suspension, Keisha's sobs mingled with the sirens as cops swarmed, their cuffs snapping on Marcus's wrists, the cold steel a familiar bite. The precinct loomed ahead, a grey beast swallowing him again, but this time he didn't fight, his head high despite the weight of Darnell's death. Carla and Jamal were hauled in beside him, their eyes hollow, the crew's fire snuffed out by a bullet Crane had aimed through them all. The cell was the same, dank and dim, but Marcus felt different. A man stripped to bone, Aisha's necklace lost in the chaos, her fate a void he couldn't fill. He'd rallied the streets, crashed Crane's stage, and thought the megaphone could outshout the lies, but the sniper flipped it, painting him a terrorist, a cop-killer reborn. Could he keep swinging when every punch drew blood? The hours bled together, the precinct's hum a taunt until Carla's voice cut through, sharp from the hall. "Feds are here," she said, her sling gone, her limp a testament to the mill. Marcus stood, hope a faint pulse as agents in crisp suits marched in, their badges flashing FBI. "Marcus Holloway," the lead said, a tall woman with a scar tracing her jaw. "We've seen the body cam footage. Crane's done, you're coming with us." The cuffs fell and Marcus rubbed his wrists, the air shifting, a crack in the wall. They drove him to a field office downtown, glass and steel gleaming under floodlights, and sat him across from Agent Reyes, her gaze steady but not cruel. "We've got Crane on tape," she said, sliding a tablet over, the alley beating looping, Crane's laugh a knife in the dark. "Assault, corruption, conspiracy. He's in custody, live on air right now." Marcus leaned forward, the screen, cutting to Crane, cuffed and snarling, shoved into a black SUV outside the precinct, cameras flashing like a storm. His chest loosened, a breath he'd held since the gavel first fell, and he gripped the table, the sniper's echo fading. Was this the end of Crane's reign? Reyes laid out the deal. Marcus hands over every scrap. Sniper logs, deepfake traces, militia ties, and they'd bury Crane for good. He nodded, spilling it all, the barbershop raid, the mill ambush, Aisha's kidnapping, his voice steady as he handed them the burner's call logs. Jamal's hacks, Carla's files. They piled up a mountain of rot Crane couldn't dodge. The arrest aired live, pundits gasping, "Lieutenant Crane falls," and Marcus watched, the precinct's blue wall crumbling under federal boots. Reyes stood, offering a handshake. "You're clear, Holloway. Go home." He almost laughed. The word a ghost, his home ashes now. But he shook her hand, the weight lifting, a chance to find Aisha, to breathe. They cut him loose at dawn, the city waking to a new script. Crane's mugshot plastered on every screen, Marcus's name a whisper of redemption. He met Carla outside, her car idling, and slid in, the silence heavy but alive. "We did it," she said, and he nodded, picturing Crane's cell, the sneer locked behind bars. Could justice finally hold? The day stretched, a blur of calls to Jamal, plans to track the militia, when the radio blared, a voice cutting through static. "Breaking news, Governor Ellis pardons Lieutenant Victor Crane, citing insufficient evidence." Marcus's blood froze, the car swerving as Carla cursed, slamming the dash. "What?" he rasped, grabbing the phone, news feeds confirming it. Crane strolling free, grinning at cameras, his suspension a footnote, the arrest a farce. The pardon hit like a sledgehammer, every brick of hope pulverized. and Marcus's hands shook, rage boiling where relief had bloomed. Reyes called, her tone clipped. "Governor's in Crane's pocket. We're not done, but he's out." Marcus hung up, the betrayal a noose, Crane's claws deeper than the feds could reach. He'd turned himself in, handed them the truth, and they'd let the snake slither free. How could a pardon erase blood? The car rolled to a stop, Carla's knuckles white on the wheel, when agents pounded the door, not Reyes's crew, but a new pack, their badges glinting with menace. "Marcus Holloway," one barked, "you're under arrest for treason, fabricating evidence against a state official." The cuffs snapped back on, tighter, biting into scars, and Marcus's jaw dropped, the world tilting again. They dragged him out, Carla shouting, "This is insane!" But the agents shoved her back, their faces stone. The precinct swallowed. Him once more. A revolving door of hate, and they tossed him in a cell, the clang a death knell. Treason, a life sentence, a charge so wild it mocked the sniper, the fire, the deepfake. Crane's pardon wasn't just freedom. It was a whip, lashing Marcus back into the pit. The feds turned pawns in a game he couldn't see. He sank to the bench, the cell's chill seeping in, and pieced it together. The governor's voice on that broadcast, oily and smug, a puppet Crane had strung up high. The body cam, the arrest. It was theater. A pause to reload, and this treason rap was the real blow, a lie so big it dwarfed the rest. Marcus's mind raced, Aisha's face flickering, her necklace gone, her life a bargaining chip Crane dangled, beyond reach. He'd thought the feds were his shield. That truth could topple a titan, but Crane's roots sank into the state's core, a cancer justice couldn't cut. The cell walls loomed closer now, and he clenched his fists, nails digging. Into palms, the sting a tether to fight. Crane walked free, but Marcus wouldn't bend. Not yet, not while Aisha breathed. The precinct buzzed, a guard muttering, "Traitor's done." And Marcus glared, the ember still alive. He'd trusted the system once, handed them his soul, and they'd spat it back, twisted into a noose. Drop a comment with one if you think Marcus can outsmart this treason trap. Hit like if Crane's pardon makes your blood boil, and subscribe because this fight's hitting depths you won't believe. So with Crane loose and Marcus caged again, what's the next twist when even the feds can't stop the fall? Marcus Holloway slumped against the cell wall, the treason charge a lead weight crushing his chest, the precinct's dank air a shroud he couldn't shake. Crane's pardon had been a gut punch, but this was a guillotine, a life sentence pinned on a lie so bold it mocked every fight he'd waged. The governor's oily voice still echoed, a puppet's grin freeing Crane while Marcus rotted. The feds turned pawns in a game rigged from the top. Aisha's face haunted him, her necklace lost, her life a thread Crane could snap any second. He'd handed the FBI everything, thought truth could cut through, but the system spat him back, caged again, a traitor branded in ink and steel. The cell door clanged, guards barking, transfer time, and Marcus stood. Wrists cuffed, his shoulder a dull ache under the bandage. They marched him to a van, its engine growling in the pre-dawn gloom, Atlanta's skyline a blur of shadows, beyond the bars. Two cops rode up front, their chatter a buzz of scorn. Holloway's done, while a third sat beside him, a wiry kid with a scar on his neck, eyes darting like he'd bolt if he could. The van rolled, tires humming on asphalt, and Marcus stared out, plotting, the woods edging the highway a flicker of green in the grey. Could he still slip this noose? The kid shifted, his hand brushing Marcus's cuff, and whispered, "Keisha says hold tight." Marcus's pulse jumped, the activist's name a lifeline, her crew still alive despite Darnell's blood. The van hit a curve, trees thickening, when headlights flared behind, a pickup screaming close, its horn blaring. The driver cursed, "What's this clown doing?" And the kid moved fast, a blade glinting as he sliced Marcus's cuffs, the steel falling with a clink. "Now!" he yelled, and the pickup rammed, metal screeching as the van spun, tires blowing out. Marcus dove for the floor, the world tilting, and the back doors burst open. Keisha's face framed in the chaos, her braids swinging as she waved a crowbar. "Move, Marcus!" she shouted, and he rolled out, hitting dirt as gunfire popped. The guards scrambling. Jamal's sedan screeched up a second wave and Marcus ran, legs pumping, the woods swallowing him as bullets chewed bark. Keisha flanked him, her breath ragged. Crane's got drones, keep low, and they crashed through brush, thorns tearing his sleeves, the van's wreck fading behind. The kid stayed back, a decoy drawing fire, his shouts a fading echo. Marcus's chest burned, freedom a wild pulse, but the sky hummed. A buzz growing louder, and he knew Crane wasn't done. They hit a clearing, Jamal waiting with a radio rig, its antenna spiking the dawn. "We're live," he said, shoving a mic at Marcus. "Tell 'em." Marcus grabbed it, voice hoarse but fierce. "Crane's free, pardoned by a coward governor, but I've got proof. His corruption, his militia, all of it. Don't let him win." Jamal beamed the signal, pirate waves hitting every station, Marcus's words crackling over Atlanta's air, a plea and a war cry. He pictured Aisha hearing, wherever she was, her faith reignited, and kept talking, spilling. The sniper logs, the deepfake, the arson, the treason trap. The woods rustled a quiet moment, and Marcus dared to hope, the broadcast a flare in Crane's dark. Then the hum turned to a roar, drones slicing the sky, black wasps glinting with menace, and Keisha yelled, "Down!" Explosions ripped the clearing, fire blooming where Jamal stood. The radio rig a twisted wreck as he screamed, flung back, blood spraying. Marcus dove, dirt choking him, and saw Keisha crawl, her legs shredded, the team halved in seconds. The drones circled, a mechanical swarm, Crane's private army unleashed, suspension be damned. Marcus dragged Keisha behind a stump, her gasps wet with pain, and watched the flames lick Jamal's body, his friend's fight snuffed out. The broadcast cut, static hissing, and Marcus's gut twisted. The woods a graveyard now, Crane's reach, a claw from hell. He'd escaped the van, rallied a stand, thought the airwaves could shield him, but Crane had flipped it, bombs raining where words had soared. The drones buzzed off, their work done, leaving silence and smoke, and Marcus cradled Keisha, her pulse weak, her eyes fluttering. "Stay with me," he rasped, tearing his shirt to bind her leg, blood soaking through fast. Jamal's death was a sledgehammer. The team's heart ripped out, and Marcus's broadcast, his last shot, was ash now, a signal Crane had drowned in fire. The woods stretched, a maze of green and grey, and Marcus staggered up, pulling Keisha with him, her weight a burden he'd bear. The van's wreck was miles back, the kid likely dead, a sacrifice Crane wouldn't blink at. This wasn't just revenge, it was annihilation, a tech-fueled purge, proving Crane's pardon was a license to kill. Marcus's mind raced. Aisha's face a beacon, the treason charge a ghost compared to this slaughter. He'd thought the feds were the peak, the governor's betrayal the depth, but Crane's drones were a new abyss, a war machine no cell could match. The sky lightened, dawn breaking over carnage, and Marcus limped on. Keisha's breath a faint thread, the clearing a scar he couldn't unsee. He'd broken out, spoken out, and Crane had answered, not with cuffs, but with bombs, a tyrant unbound, by badges or bars. The woods offered cover but no safety, every snap of a twig a threat, and Marcus's resolve hardened, a blade forged in loss. Jamal's scream, Keisha's blood, they were fuel, a vow to find Aisha, to gut Crane's empire, even if it took his last breath. The highway rumbled distant, a lifeline cut off, and Marcus pressed deeper, the drone's hum a fading taunt. Crane had turned suspension into supremacy, a kingpin laughing at the law, and Marcus was prey again, hunted not by men but machines. The breakout had been a spark, the broadcast a flare, but this was Crane's checkmate, a move Marcus hadn't seen coming. He'd escaped the precinct, the feds, but freedom was a lie, a step into a kill zone Crane ruled. Keisha groaned, her weight sagging, and Marcus tightened his grip, the woods a refuge and a tomb, his fight narrowed to survival, to one more day to strike back. Marcus Holloway trudged through the woods, Keisha's limp body a dead weight in his arms, her blood soaking his torn shirt as dawn bled into the sky. The drone strike's smoke still stung his lungs, Jamal's charred form a ghost in his periphery, the clearing a graveyard of his fight. The highway rumbled miles off, a world he couldn't reach, and every step sank deeper into the wild, thorns snagging his legs, his shoulder screaming under the bandage. Keisha's pulse flickered, faint but stubborn, and Marcus clung to it, a thread keeping him sane. Crane's drones had gutted his crew, turned his broadcast into ash, but Aisha was out there, alive or dead, and that kept his feet moving. The treason charge, the pardon, they were chains he'd broken, only to stumble into this, a war where machines outgunned hope. Could he still reach her through this hell? A tower loomed ahead, a rusted spike piercing the tree line, its radio dish glinting in the morning light. Marcus's breath hitched, a plan sparking, reckless but alive. He eased Keisha against a pine, her groan a knife in his gut, and checked her leg, the makeshift bandage dark with red. "Hold on," he whispered, then climbed, the metal cold and slick, his hands raw by the time he hit the platform. The control box was a tangle of wires, but he'd seen Jamal work enough to guess, twisting cables until static crackled, a live signal pulsing out. He grabbed the mic, voice hoarse, and spoke. "This is Marcus Holloway, Chief Justice, hunted for telling the truth. Crane's free, pardoned by a corrupt governor, but he's got my daughter, burned my home, killed my friends. I'm begging. You don't let him win. Forgive me for failing, but fight with me now." The words poured, a flood of rage and sorrow spilling Crane's sins, the sniper, the deepfake, the drones, every blow that had carved him hollow. He pictured Aisha hearing, her braids swaying as she nodded, and the city waking, ears pricking, to his plea. The signal soared, pirate waves hitting every radio, car horns honking in rhythm, a swell of voices rising beyond the trees. Marcus's chest heaved, tears cutting tracks, Roswell prison breaking in, the broadcast aflare in the dark. Listeners wept, calls flooding stations. "We believe you." And he dared to hope, the tower, a beacon, piercing Crane's night. Could this voice outrun the bombs? The air shifted, a rumble growing, and Marcus turned, the woods trembling as engines roared, militia trucks crashing through brush, their Confederate flags flapping like vultures' wings. Crane's men, not suspended, but unleashed, stormed the tower, rifles glinting, their shouts a war cry. "Holloway's ours." Marcus gripped the rail, the plea still echoing, and saw them climb, a swarm of hate closing fast. He'd hijacked the air, turned it into a weapon, but Crane wouldn't let it stand. His empire cracked but not crumbled. The first shot pinged, the tower metal sparking, and Marcus ducked, the mic clattering, his broadcast a lifeline they'd sever. The militia breached the platform, boots thudding, and Marcus fought, fists swinging. A judge turned beast, but they were too many. A tide of fists and steel. A burly thug with a shaved skull pinned him, knee grinding his spine, and Crane loomed free and feral, his sneer a blade in the dawn. "You don't quit, do you?" he spat, wrenching Marcus's arm, pain lancing white-hot as bones snapped. They dragged him to a crate, a makeshift studio, and Crane shoved a camera in his face, its red light blinking, a live feed to the world. "Confess," he growled, pressing a gun to Marcus's temple, the barrel cold and final. Marcus gasped, blood dripping from his lip, and Crane twisted his broken arm, agony ripping a scream he couldn't choke. "I staged it all," Marcus rasped, the lie forced, each word a betrayal of his soul. The footage, the sniper, all fake. Crane grinned, the feed soaring, radios flipping to this, his tortured voice drowning the plea. "I'm guilty. A fraud." The militia aired it wide, stations cutting to the confession, the city's swell turning to silence, then jeers. "Traitor!" Marcus's head lolled, the gun bruising his skull, and Crane leaned close, breath sour. "You're..." "Girls next," he hissed, a promise that gutted him deeper than the break. They hauled him down, the tower a ruin, and executed his allies on camera. Keisha's limp Roswell breaking first, her cry a gurgle as a blade slit her throat, blood pooling red, the lens drinking it in. The feed rolled, a slaughter in crisp. "Light," and Marcus watched, helpless, the plea's echo killed by his voice, a lie he couldn't unmake. Crane's men dragged the bodies, Keisha's limp, Jamal's ash, and dumped them at the base, a pile for the world. "Holloway's terror cell," the caption screamed. Marcus's knees hit dirt, the tower's shadow a tomb, and Crane turned, His final act a gunshot, not to Marcus but skyward, a taunt as he strode off, the militia peeling away, their trucks a fading roar. The plea had soared, the confession crushed it, and Marcus lay broken. Aisha's fate a void, Crane's empire, intact, his war won in blood and air. Marcus Holloway lay crumpled at the tower's base, the militia's dust settling over Keisha's bloodied corpse, her throat a red gash in the morning light. His arm hung useless, snapped by Crane's twist, the pain a white-hot pulse drowning. The gunshot echo Crane had fired skyward, a taunt as he'd vanished. The forced confession still burned his tongue, a lie that turned his plea into poison. The city's airwaves now chanting, "Traitor," where hope had flared. Aisha's name clawed his mind, Crane's hiss, "Your girl's next." A blade he couldn't dodge. The tower loomed, a rusted skeleton mocking his fall, but Marcus rolled to his knees, dirt caking his wounds, the ember of fight flickering. Still, he staggered up, the woods a blur of green and shadow, and stumbled south, each step a vow to find her, to end this. His breath rasped, lungs raw from smoke and screams, when voices cut through, low and urgent, survivors from the drone. Strike. 3 shadows limping from the trees. Darnell's cousin Trey, a wiry mechanic with a busted lip, led them, his eyes hard but alive. "Saw the feed," he said, voice rough. "Knew it was Bull. We're with you." Marcus nodded, the crew a lifeline, their faces scarred by Cranes. Or Lila, a nurse with a burned arm, and Rico, a teacher clutching a crowbar. They patched his arm, Lila's hands steady despite her own pain, and Marcus rasped the plan. "Crane's compound, north of Decatur. Aisha's there. We hit him now." Trey's truck idled nearby. A dented beast spared the drones, and they piled in, the engine growling as they tore through back roads, Atlanta's sprawl a distant hum. Marcus gripped the dash, the necklace's loss a void, but Aisha's face fueled him, her law books packed in a mill now ash. The compound loomed after 20 miles, a squat fortress of concrete and razor wire, militia trucks parked like sentinels, Confederate flags snapping in the breeze. Trey killed the lights, coasting to a stop, and Marcus scoped it. Guards pacing, rifles glinting, Crane's empire a hive of hate. Could they breach this wall? They moved fast, Rico prying a grate loose, the sewer a foul echo of Marcus's first escape, but this time he led, crawling through muck, his broken arm screaming. They emerged in a courtyard, shadows stretching long, and Marcus signaled, Trey's crowbar cracking a guard's skull, silent and swift. Lila swiped keys, her burn a red welt, and they slipped inside. The compound a maze of steel doors and flickering bulbs. Voices echoed, militia grunts laughing, and Marcus's pulse hammered, every corner a threat. They hit a locked cell, Rico. Jimmying it open, and there she was, Aisha, chained to a pipe, her braids matted, her cheek bruised, but her eyes fierce. "Dad!" she croaked, and Marcus rushed her, snapping the cuffs with Trey's bolt cutters, her arms locking around him, a lifeline in the dark. "I heard you," she whispered, "on the radio before." He nodded, tears cutting tracks, and pulled her up, her legs shaky but strong. Crane's taunt had been bait, and Marcus had bitten, the crew his fangs now. They turned to bolt, Rico scouting. When boots thundered, Crane bursting in, his bulk filling the door, a pistol cocked, his sneer a storm. "Knew you'd come," he said, militia flooding behind, rifles raised, the trap sprung. Marcus shoved Aisha back, facing Crane. "Surrender, you bastard, it's over." Crane laughed, a guttural bark, and waved a detonator, its red light blinking. "Not yet, Holloway." The crew froze, Trey's crowbar clattering, and Marcus's gut sank, the compound wired, Crane's ace a bomb to bury them all. "You lose," Crane said, finger hovering, and Marcus lunged, broken arm be damned, tackling him, the gun skidding as they hit concrete. Aisha screamed, "Dad!" and the militia opened fire, bullets chewing walls, Rico diving for cover. Lila's cry cut short as lead tore her chest. Marcus wrestled Crane, fists pounding, blood slicking his knuckles, and wrenched the detonator, free, hurling it to Trey. "Run!" he bellowed, pinning Crane, the man's sneer twisting to rage. Aisha bolted, Trey dragging her, Rico trailing, and Marcus held Crane, a judge's grip on a devil, buying seconds. The militia swarmed. Boots. Kicking. But Trey yanked a lever, a side door groaning open, the crew spilling out as Crane roared, "Now!" The detonator clicked in his fist. A second too late and the compound erupted. A fireball swallowing Marcus's world, concrete cracking, steel melting, the blast throwing him back, Crane's laugh drowned in the roar. Dust choked the air. Flames. Licking skyward and Marcus crawled, ears ringing, Aisha's scream a distant pull. He hit grass, rolling free, the compound a pyre, Crane's trap his own tomb. Aisha stumbled to him, her hands yanking him up, Trey beside her, bloodied but breathing, Rico's limp a shadow behind. The militia burned, their flags ash, and Marcus clutched Aisha, her pulse a miracle under his palm. He'd freed her, cornered Crane, thought victory was theirs, but the bomb flipped it, a draw in blood and fire. The woods stretched, a shield from the blaze, and Marcus staggered on. Aisha's weight his anchor, the compound's ruin a testament to Crane's spite, a kingpin who'd rather die than lose. Sirens wailed, distant but closing, and Marcus's mind raced, the confession, the plea, all ashes now, Aisha's breath his only win. Marcus Holloway clawed through the compound's rubble, the blast's heat still searing his skin. Aisha's hand locked in his as they stumbled from the inferno. Concrete dust choked the air, a grey haze swallowing the woods, the militia's screams silenced by the fire that had consumed Crane's trap. His broken arm dangled, a useless weight, his shoulder pulsing with blood under the shredded bandage. But Aisha's breath beside him was a lifeline, her braids caked with ash, her eyes wide but alive. Trey limped ahead, his crowbar lost, Rico, trailing with a stagger, their crew cut to 4. The bomb a butcher's tally of Lila and the rest. The compound burned behind, a pyre of twisted steel and melted flags. Crane's laugh buried in the roar he'd unleashed. Marcus's ears rang, the detonator's click, a ghost in his skull, and he pulled Aisha close, her frame trembling but unbroken. They'd breached the beast, freed her from chains, cornered Crane, only for him to flip the board. A draw in blood and flame. Could this wreckage be a win? They staggered deeper into the trees, sirens wailing in the distance, a chorus, growing louder as Atlanta woke to the blast. Marcus's chest heaved, each breath a knife, and he scanned the dark. The governor's pardon, the treason charge, all ashes now, but Crane's death felt hollow, a victory snatched by spite. Aisha gripped his sleeve, her voice a rasp. "I got it, Dad," and pulled a cracked phone from her pocket, its screen flickering. A recording time-stamped from the chaos. Marcus froze, her words sinking in. Crane's real confession when he thought I'd die. She hit play, and Crane's growl filled the quiet. I framed Holloway, burned his house, killed his crew, and I'd do it again to keep this city mine. The audio cut. Aisha's sob breaking through, a truth Crane had spat in her cell, a noose for his own neck. Marcus's knees buckled, hope surging through the haze, and he took the phone, its weight a gavel reborn. They pushed on, Trey, scouting a path. Rico's cough a wet hack behind. The woods a shield as the sirens closed. A clearing opened, a stream glinting under dawn, and Marcus sank to the bank. Aisha beside him, uploading the file to Jamal's old cloud, a ghost signal from a dead friend. The upload pinged, live to every feed, Crane's voice a thunderclap. Across the city, I framed Holloway, looping on screens, radios, phones, a confession no deepfake could touch. News vans screeched to the blast site, choppers thumping. And Marcus watched the feed from Aisha's phone, pundits stammering, "Crane's dead, a hero stopping Holloway," until the recording hit, flipping the script. Protests erupted, fists smashing precinct glass, voices roaring, "Justice now!" The governor's face flashed, pale and sweating, his pardon a joke as calls flooded. "Resign!" Marcus's lips twitched, a grim smile, the truth a blade cutting Crane's empire at last. Aisha leaned into him, her head on his good shoulder, and whispered, "We did it," her law school grit shining through the bruises. The feed rolled, Crane's heroic death a lie shredded by his own words, and the governor buckled, a presser at noon. "I'm stepping down, effective immediately," his voice a whimper as the city cheered, a tide Marcus had turned from ash. He'd lost everything, home, crew, name, but this was a spark, a win carved from ruin. Could justice breathe in this grave? The phone dimmed, battery fading, and Marcus coughed, blood flecking his lips, the blast's toll creeping in, his chest tight, each breath a struggle. Aisha's eyes widened. "Dad!" And he waved her off, forcing a nod. "I'm fine." But the wood spun, his vision blurring, the stream's gurgle a distant hum. He'd fought Crane's cuffs, snipers, drones, bombs, and won Aisha back. Handed the city its truth, but his body faltered, ribs cracked, lungs wet, the cost of every blow piling high. Trey knelt. "We need a doc." But Marcus shook his head, the phone slipping from his grip, Aisha's recording a torch he'd passed. "Too late," he rasped, voice fading. "But you're free." She clutched him, tears soaking his shirt. "No, Dad, stay," her plea a dagger as his pulse slowed. The woods dimming, Crane's fall a light he couldn't hold. Sirens screamed closer, medics crashing through, but Marcus's eyes fixed on Aisha, her face his last sight, a judge's. Daughter who'd finished the fight. He slumped, blood pooling under him, a martyr's red on the earth, and the world faded. The governor's resignation a whisper, Crane's empire dust, Aisha's sob the final note. The medics swarmed, too slow, and she held his hand, cold now. The recording her inheritance, a truth that'd echo where he couldn't. The city burned with rage and redemption, a scales tipped by a man who'd begged forgiveness, but found it in her eyes, a justice too late to save him. This story of Marcus Holloway, a black Chief Justice ensnared by systemic racism, reveals brutal truths about power, resilience, and sacrifice. The first lesson is the unrelenting force of institutional bias. Marcus's title couldn't shield him from racist police, corrupt officials, or a governor's pardon of Crane, showing how deeply prejudice roots itself in systems meant to uphold justice. It's a stark reminder that status alone doesn't protect against hate. It can even make you a bigger target. Second, resilience can defy the odds, but not always outrun them. Marcus fought back with cunning, hacking footage, rallying activists, hijacking airwaves, yet each victory birthed a fiercer backlash from snipers to drones, proving that standing up to racism demands relentless grit, often at a devastating cost. Third, truth is a double-edged sword. Marcus's pleas and Aisha's recording toppled Crane, but his forced confession under torture flipped public trust, highlighting how manipulation can twist even the strongest evidence. Finally, sacrifice defines justice's price. Marcus lost his home, friends, and life, yet his death sparked a reckoning with Aisha carrying his torch. It's a bitter lesson that change often demands martyrs, their blood-watering seeds of reform. This story urges us to see beyond headlines, to question power, and to fight for those crushed by it, even when the battle feels lost. So, what's your takeaway from Marcus's war against a racist system? Drop a comment with your thoughts. Hit like if his fight stirs you, subscribe for more raw truths, and share to spread this call for justice. Thank you for joining this journey. May you find strength to challenge the Cranes in your world and hope to see justice rise from the ashes.